I'm Nate. I'm one of your Reddit fly tying moderators. A couple of weeks ago, I posted a thread about one of my favorite smallmouth patterns. It's kind of a cross between a woolly bugger and a couple of other things. It's just a big, sloppy streamer. So I'm going to show you how to make it here and what you need to make it. First things first, you've got your hook. This is a Daichi size 4 straight eye salmon hook. I prefer straight eye for this because it gives me a little bit better action in the water, closer to what I want at least. Then we've got thread. This is a 140 olive streamer thread. It's not waxed. Don't need to be too terribly discerning with this. It's a smallmouth fly. This is a nice dumbbell eye. I like the sealed ones rather than the painted ones. They fall apart less in the water. For the body, we're going to be using a green barred chenille. For the tail, we've got olive marabou. I've got two different hackle materials here. I got some orange grizzly hackle, and I've got some olive saddle hackle. And I think I told you about the silly legs already. Yeah. And we've got this nice big fat peacock sword here. So first things first, we're going to tie our thread to the hook shank. Slipping around here. There we go. So we'll get secured in. Move down about a third of the way down the hook shank. We're going to tie in our eyes here. So that's where we start. Get our eyes kind of secured here. I like to not use cross wraps on. I just kind of like to alternate. It helps you to keep it straight. So to make sure they sit in place, put a little bit of CA cement on them, right on top of that, where they're sitting. And if they're leaning left, you tie right. If they're leaning right, you tie left. Just a couple of nice big wraps to get them secured into place. So you're going to move back toward the curve of your hook here. It's time to put in our tail. You want some body on the tail. You want it to be about the same length as the hook shank as with most streamers. So to kind of stack it up and give myself a little bit of thickness, I'll take a little bit of marabou to start. So we take that off, come back a little bit more. This fly isn't too perfect, like I said, my big point of emphasis here is that this is a smallmouth fly. Their feeding response or strike response is pretty easy, so you don't need to be too perfect with this one, so I don't worry too much about details. A little bit of CA cement right by the end of where those marabou feathers are tied in to kind of make sure it's good and secure. To get us a decent, we'll put a little bit more in there just to make it kind of a little bit fatter. Yeah, I don't remember where I was going there, but so we've got our tail almost done here. I had a couple of people ask me how this fly is fished most effectively, and this one I prefer to fish. There we go. It's a nice big ugly tail. I prefer to fish this one upstream, almost directly upstream a lot of the time, in some nice slow smallmouth water. If you've got any submerged structure, trees, rocks, any stuff like that, usually if you cast it right in front of it, a lot of the time you'll get hit right on the drop. You don't even need to strip or anything. You can strip or crawl this fly, but a lot of the time, the times when you're successful, you don't even need to. You don't even get that far. You get a couple of seconds into the water and you've got your strike. So for the body, a couple of inches of that green barred chenille, we're going to come back up near the eye here and tie that in. Bring that back down to the tail and come right back up. You want the body to be a little bit fat on this one. So we're just going to bring that right back around. We're going to leave a little bit of a gap here between where we finish tying off the chenille and where the eye is. So, cut off our excess. I took way too much chenille here. but it's cheap and I'm not really worried about it. So right now this is where we put in our bleeding lung or gill area. This isn't really supposed to represent any particular animal in the water so much. It's just kind of big and foreign looking to a lot of smallmouth, so they attack it based on, you know, they're not familiar with it. It's in their house and they're angry at it. So strip down a little bit of our orange grizzly, and we're gonna tie that in, bring it forward to make sure it's secure, cut that off, put extra wraps here, then bring the thread back. Just when you're tying in these hackles, just make sure they don't turn around on you, then they look all sloppy and have the tendency to fall apart. Not too many wraps on this. This is more of an accent than anything else. You don't want to be too terribly dense. Just that little bit of reddish orange, I think, gives it an almost bleeding color in the water that helps to incite some predatory strikes. So we're going to pull that back just a bit. And there you've got your center body of the fly here. Next step on this is we're going to tie in some legs. Use any color. This fly also, when I do it in black, the body I don't even mess around with chenille. I like to use ostrich herl. It gives it a nice flashy kind of buggy body that seems to incite a lot of strikes. We're going to tie in our legs. You can put as many or as few in as you want. I'm just going to do 2 on this one because we're saving time for internet video's sake. So we're going to come back up close to the hook eye. Put these right up there by the eye. I slipped a little bit there. Tie in over them, pull them back, and they should sit really, really nicely right there. I'm giving them about a ½ inch, just a little bit longer than the hook point itself. And they don't need to be perfect, just kind of get them in there, make sure they're on. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this nice peacock sword here and tear off some of our fatter fibers up right by where it becomes like the eye type part. So I'm going to grab 3 for this fly, 3 for each side. And I like to alternate sides on the peacock sword so it gives a little bit of a symmetrical shape to the fly when we're looking at our antennas here. So you pull those back and make them right about the same length as the tail. Tie it in on one side of the fly and take the opposing 3 sword feathers from the opposite side of the quill here, or sword rather, and do just about the same thing. Pull them across so they sit in there. Perfect. And we'll do a nice couple of wraps here to make sure everything's good and secure. So now you've got the tail, body, some antennas, a little bit of a lung gill region. We're going to grab our, where did I put it? Primary hackle here. Doesn't need to be too thick. A nice smaller saddle hackle feather like that should do you just fine. So we're going to tie that in right up by the hook eye. Pull off that little bit of quill area and secure that all the way down and come back up. I like these bigger salmon hooks too for this because then you're not going to worry about covering up your eye too much. Just the biggest thing with these is to try to make sure that the feathers don't turn themselves around too much when you're putting in your primary hackle here. So just try to pull them a little bit back as you're doing your fore wrap here. But anything that's really sloppy we can correct later. So now you've got this big built up looking ton of hackle feathers in the front, so we're going to tie that off. Clip off the feather at its base, and then to form it correctly we kind of grab it, just make sure you don't get yourself in that hook point there. Tie a couple back, kind of mold them back here. You'll probably find it a little bit difficult to get the ones on the bottom closer to the hook point to pull back, but that's not too terribly important. If you get any of them just straight sticking out like this, just clip them. So you'll form that back. And fluff them out a little bit. Get rid of a couple of these excess guys. And for the most part, yeah, we're gonna pull down here, whip it off. And there we go. A little bit of head cement. Just let that sit. Like I said, this is a very, very, very effective smallmouth fly. So it's not pretty, but we catch a hell of a lot of fish on these out here. So yeah, you've got, I don't really fish these on lakes, but rivers. I guess I'd cast upstream. Or, you know, on the slant, I very rarely hook fish downstream on these. So fish them upstream into some big, slow, deep pools, and a lot of the time, before you even find the bottom, you'll get your strike. So yeah, hope you enjoy it. That's the Rhodes Bomber. Yeah, good luck fishing. Enjoy.